Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope you guys have had a great last day of August out there, about to head into September. And I hope you guys are enjoying your evening. I got you an update on the tropics. I'm going to give you the latest and greatest information. It looks pretty active out there, or at least it looks like it's going to be here in the next, I would say, 48 to 72 hours, most likely. I do think we will have a named storm sometime in the next 48 to 72 hours, certainly by around Saturday morning. But it's probably not going to be from the system that we all thought was going to be it. So we'll talk about that. And I have a feeling that we might take a couple names in the hurricane list pretty quick. The name behind behind Danielle is the E name, which is Earl. So it'll be interesting to see how quick and how fast we start rolling through the 2022 hurricane season list of names. But we might not, but we're going to give you the latest information. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and I appreciate the support. If you notice I look a little different in this video, it's because I'm wearing my glasses. I'm going super geek mode on you. No, I'm just kidding. My contacts, I wear contacts and they're extremely dried out today, and I don't know why. I got some cheap contacts, so I definitely need to upgrade my contact or do something, because every time I put my glasses back on, I immediately get drowsy. So forgive me if I seem low energy in this video, but here we go. If you guys got anything I can pray about, please put it in the comments below. Put those prayer requests down there. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's actually back up and look at the 2-day outlook from this. So this is chances of development within the next 48 hours, next 2 days. This is from around the 2 p.m. update from today. This still has a 60% chance to become a depression. This has a 40% chance to become a depression in the next 2 days. And this has a 70% chance. So I'm thinking that this is going to take a name probably in the next 48 hours. It's got a stout low-level circulation. If you look at it, it doesn't look great at all, especially what I'm about to show you here on the entire Atlantic Basin. But we're going to zoom in a little bit on it, and I'm going to talk about some things that the sun has already set on it, but we can look at some past imagery for sure. You know, this is, and by the way, this is Invest 93L. This is Invest 91L. 91L, which is what we've been talking about for several days now, looked really good today. At one point, I thought it was going to become a tropical cyclone sometime over the next 24 hours, but the convection has kind of dwindled away, but it's kind of firing up a little bit again, but we'll talk a little bit about that. But in a nutshell, all this stuff, and about the only thing that changes with the 5-day outlook is this is 80% chance right here, and then this is a 50% chance. So not much changes with that. So I'll start this by saying with this video, it looks like it's about to get much more active. But like I said in the last couple videos, active doesn't mean a hurricane slamming into some kind of geographical location, a landmass. So I think when people hear active, they immediately think, well, holy cow, we're about to get a hurricane make landfall in Jamaica or Cuba or the Gulf Coast or Southeast or something. No, but I think that if you remember, if you're a weather geek like me and you remember what happened in September of 2021, last year, we ran through the 2021 hurricane list very quickly, but we had a lot of fish storms. Pretty much after Ida, besides Hurricane Nicholas, I mean, that was it. But it was still pretty active out there. I don't know if y'all remember, Hurricane Sam was an absolute beast of a hurricane, but it didn't bother anybody. Now, we did have the system that affected New England, and we had a couple big-time storms up here in Canada and Nantucket, places like that. But Newfoundland, hopefully I said that right. I know I got a couple viewers from Canada, and I really appreciate you guys. Just like the viewers from the Caribbean islands, I always love and appreciate y'all's comments. It just means the world that other people from outside the U.S. is viewing, so definitely appreciate that. But anyways, so this is actually, you see this system right here? This is actually the system that will likely take the name Danielle, not this, unless something crazy happens, which I wouldn't be surprised. I think that this is going to get its act together very quickly over the next 24 to 48 hours. So this is 91L, and then this is not an Invest, but this is a tropical wave. But you notice the big area of convection that blew up earlier, and then it's kind of weakened. So we'll see what happens over the next day with 91L. But a closer look at 93L. So this is it. The sun goes down. That's why the screen gets dark. But if you look right here, you see the spin? That is what we call a low-level circulation. And I tell you what, that's basically the heart of tropical systems. When you have a stout low-level circulation, that means that mid-level convection, a mid-level circulation can kind of get going, and sometimes they can get vertically aligned. And when they get vertically stacked, where you have the mid-level circulation on top of the low-level circulation, that's when you start to get a strengthening tropical system, a strengthening hurricane. And right now, the entire northwest part of this storm and low-level circulation is exposed to some dry air and some shear. So we're expecting this to develop a lot more over the next 48 to 72 hours. But you can tell that this is going to be a beast soon. And as the sun goes down, I would not be surprised if by the time we wake up, and I might be wrong, but by the time we wake up tomorrow morning and the sun rises on this is going to look much better. Now, I know you're thinking, well, it's not a big deal. It's not impacting anybody, but it still helps us to figure out what's going on. But this is going to be interesting. And I have a feeling this is going to be our first hurricane of the season, of the 2022 hurricane season. We'll go a little further south. And one thing that we noticed today with 93L, and this is the Leeward Island, so it's getting close, is you can tell it's starting to get more of that symmetrical look that you typically see with a tropical storm or higher tier and starting to get into a hurricane. But the convection kind of dwindled away this evening with diurnal minimum, kind of killed the convection. Diurnal minimum means basically between the sea surface temperatures and the air temperatures, there's just not that big of a difference. So therefore, you just kind of get a loss of convection. We'll talk about that more when the time comes. But in general, it's just it's a time during the day where weakening typically occurs. But it's got that symmetrical look, right? A little bit of a circulation is still very elongated. But it'll be interesting if we can get some aircraft out here. And you can't tell because of all the mid-level convection, but you might have a little bit of a spin under this. But we'll see what this looks like in the morning. So, a couple things to talk about. First off, you're going to see, well, let's go on and back it up because I'm already showing you what we're going to talk about. First off, this is the system right here. We'll start this off around Friday afternoon. You notice around Friday afternoon, this is 1,002 millibar low pressure. You're already probably at a tropical storm Danielle at this point. The Euro doesn't want this developing yet, and it doesn't really develop this at all. And then you got this tropical wave. All these are symbolized on this right here, all features. So we keep this moving in time. Watch how this number with 93L begins to drop. All of a sudden, it's sub 1,000 millibar low pressure. By Saturday morning, I think this will be Tropical Storm Danielle. But look how this number continues to drop. Also, look how it's going absolutely nowhere. It's being trapped by ridging on top, and it cannot. And the ridging is actually kind of just tucking in this rigidified pressure. So it's going to be incredible to watch this. And it'll be great watching this because it's not going to be affecting anybody from far off here just in the U.S. and see if this legitimately just spins away in place. I think it will. At the same time, you got a tropical wave right here. It's not developing. You got this. This is around this coming Sunday morning. And then finally, by getting into Labor Day, you see this starts to move a little bit further north. At this point, it's a 985 millibar low pressure hurricane. Category 1, maybe Category 2 hurricane at this point. You keep moving in time, this gets as deep as a sub 980 millibar low pressure. So at this point, it certainly is a Category 2 hurricane, but it hasn't moved much. And you don't have to worry out here in Canada. This is pretty far away, and the steering currents do not look to steer this into Canada. You typically don't have those kind of steering patterns out here once you have a system way out here. But it's going to be wild to see with this. And then you look at down here, we're still doing this about a week out. We're still talking about 91L. On the Euro, it never really can pick up any forward speed with Invest 91L. It's totally different than the GFS. But the GFS is actually starting to show a weaker trend. To me, I'm wondering if it's starting to nod its head to the Euro as far as strength. So not necessarily as far as forward speed, but watch this little feature down here. I wouldn't say this one has me worried, but it's taken that low rider track that we watch out for big-time tropical systems that make the entire track across the tropical Atlantic. So we get this, and finally, what will likely be Danielle will move on out deep and will fall really far out in the North Atlantic and eventually get into some, probably become, basically it'll get into some much lower sea surface temperatures, a very much unfavorable environment up here. I cannot talk, guys, obviously, but watch this. Now, look, we're 198 hours out. We're about 8 days out, but watch how this begins to slowly strengthen. And all of a sudden, We got a strong tropical storm way out here in the middle of the MDR region, about 10 days out. And this is Bermuda, and look at this feature right here. This is still an Invest 91L that, by the way, the Euro over the next 10 days does not have developing at all. It keeps it basically how it is right now, a weak tropical wave. But then it has this feature right here, and this is, we got to watch to see if this can keep showing up on the Euro. But you never know. If you were to keep this run going, it might scoot out to sea unless you get this ridging right here to continue to keep shifting west. Now, you look at the GFS. What does the GFS show? It shows a much stronger system with 91L, and it has continued to show that. Now, finally, the GFS is getting on board with an all-out hurricane with 93L, what will be likely Danielle, but it still has a hurricane developing with 91L down here. And here's Bermuda, and luckily, even with the GFS, it never even gets close to Bermuda, not even close. So it's something to watch. Now, this is actually the first time I'm looking at the GFS while I'm doing the video at the same exact time. The GFS has not been showing this low pressure that the Euro is showing it. Suddenly, it is. So the GFS, after these two systems move on out, pretty much shuts down the MDR, at least it has been. Now it's starting to show a low pressure down here. So we have to watch to see if some kind of trend develops with, I guess, what you would call a fourth system to watch down here in the main development region. We got to watch that. But here goes what will likely be Danielle moving on out. Here goes what would possibly be Earl. It depends on if the GFS is right or the Euro is right. But like I said, the GFS has this thing well south of Bermuda as early as this coming Tuesday morning. The Euro has this thing kind of just south of Bermuda, like 2 Saturdays from now, September 10th. So it tells you that the speed is so much different here, that as far as where it's going to be located and when. But, you know, the GFS has an all-out hurricane. I mean, a major hurricane at that, too. Has this moving on out, and this is getting into about 8 days out, September 8th. Has this moving on out, not really affecting anybody, but now the GFS is picking up on that wave that the Euro is. And sure enough, of course, the GFS goes 15 days out. Once you get about 10 days out, the Euro still has this out here, the same thing that basically the Euro does around the same time frame. And you keep this going here, and it's just something we got to watch. But notice how it weakens. Notice how it weakens. The number goes back up, the millibore. That means that it weakens. That tells you that, listen, the Atlantic Basin, it just does not want to be favorable this year. So, of course, this is so far out it doesn't matter. But we need to watch this little feature and to see if it keeps showing up, because if it does, I think that'll be the next thing to talk about as far as worrying about a system that could affect somewhere in the Caribbean or the U.S. We have nothing to worry about right now. But here you go. Here's this signal on the European ensembles. Pretty stout signal for that right there. Of course, we know about this. But what's interesting is you still got a couple members from the European model that wants to have a stronger system moving a little bit further west. But that's literally 5 out of 50 members. So not a very strong signal there. But we're watching this. There's about 35, 40 members showing that signal for that wave right here. So we need to watch that. And then, of course, let's see if some of the new stuff has came out. We're probably not far enough yet. It's only 102 hours out. So we're just not picking up on that yet. But if we go back and look at 12Z, it certainly shows that little signal right here, but not quite as stout as the European ensembles, the EPS. So we'll continue to watch. One thing we can watch here is, first off, this is a great example to seeing what's happening with 93L. This is ridging. This is for Saturday morning, September 3rd. Look at this stout ridging over the North Atlantic. You see how it's trapped? It's just trapped and trapped and trapped, and all of a sudden it finally is able to latch on in this upper trough right here, and then it goes and heads on out to sea, finds a weakness. But one thing we're watching, you see this weak ridging? We'll see if this weak ridging is enough to keep this in a more southern latitude down here. But in general, there's a pretty big weakness here. So if anything strong gets going down here pretty early on in central the tropical Atlantic, of course we don't know what the steering currents are going to be this far out. But I would argue that if this is a hurricane at this point, this is going to turn out to sea. So I bet you're wondering, a lot of people are wondering, well, how is a hurricane going to form so far north with this system right here? Well, one thing is the conditions are favorable. The upper wind pattern is pretty favorable. It's about to become a lot more favorable. And with sea surface temperatures, that system's right around here, 27 and 28 degrees Celsius. That's still, you know, about around 80, 82 degrees in Fahrenheit. So, I mean, the conditions are there still, sea surface temperature wise, for development. In fact, it's warmer in this part of the northern Atlantic than way down here in certain areas. So, you know, that's why this is going to be able to strengthen that system way up here. So, things are going to uptick, guys. They really are. But there's nothing to worry about right now. There really isn't, which is great to say the last day of August, which is definitely entering the beginning period of hurricane season. So that's all I got. I'll have you an update in the morning. We'll talk a little bit about that continued signal that we keep showing in the long range, because that might be something we need to watch. That's it. God bless. Hope you guys have a great evening.